the shift that I encourage people to make is think about who are the people that you really want to work with. Who are the people that you're not, okay, it's fine, they're in the program, they wrote the check, they show up sometimes, it's all good. Who are the people that you literally would jump out of bed in the morning because you get to work with that day, right? Like really zero in. It's your client avatar, right? In my terminology, we call them purple fish. Who are your purple fish that are the people you passionately want to help and you're best equipped to help?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ignition Path podcast. I am super happy that you're here today because today's conversation gives a powerful look at how leaders grow beyond the limits of one-to-one work. So I've got a gentleman who I met through the Facebook groups, and we had a pre-call like I always do. I've been a part of masterminds before myself and have always wanted to do a mastermind. And I meet this gentleman by the name of Jay Fairbrother. He is a mastermind guru. That's his business, is helping people develop masterminds. So I wanted to dive deeper into that subject and bring that concept to the listeners of the Ignition Path podcast. I also want to dive deeper into his path through his entrepreneurship and why he came here. He's got a very interesting background. I can't wait for people to hear more about it. Jay, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great, Kyle. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, the good thing is we're both Steelers fans. I don't think he's a Buckeye fan, but I gotta represent. I'm not sure when this episode's going to go live. We may be happy right now. We may not be. I know we're in the playoffs, at least at the time of this recording. We're waiting to see who we play between Miami and the Texas A&M. So at this point in time, I'm still in a good mood. Yeah, we lost against Indiana. It was a good game. The Indiana quarterback won the Heisman. Good for him. I'm happy that another Big Ten team is doing good, and Indiana, where my dad is from Indiana, so I've always had a soft spot for the Hoosiers. So I'm glad they're doing good right now. The second time we meet them, I hope we show up like we did against Oregon last year. So the Steelers, what's our prediction tonight? I know that the Steelers play the Miami Dolphins tonight. So yeah,
so you're speaking Greek to me because when you live in Pittsburgh, there is no discussion around football if it's not related to the Steelers.
To the Steelers, so, okay.
Yeah. So it's either the Steelers or nothing. We don't
or
pay
nothing
attention.
Really. So no college. So not even Pitt or Penn State or anybody
barely.
like that.
No, barely. Yeah, we barely
Wow.
pay attention to Pitt here because it's all Steelers all day.
All right. Well, that's a whole nother subject. We could talk for hours, of course. I'm not a big fan of Rodgers. Jay and I talked about this earlier. I'm not a big fan of Rodgers, but I still want him to do good. But, I'm hoping that my boy Will Howard comes in and saves the day next year. So. All right. Well, today we're going to be unpacking, what masterminds really do, basically how that all works and how Jay turned his life into this mastermind program. But first of all, Jay, tell us a little about yourself. Once you tell us about yourself, if it leads right into your path, that's fine. But if it stems a question to get you into where you were before you started your entrepreneurial path, we'll go from there.
Yeah, so it does lead right in. So I started as an entrepreneur 30 years ago, and I started my first company, and it was pretty successful right out of the gate. Pretty quickly grew it to about $1 million in revenue, but I got stuck there. I plateaued at that $1 million range, and I hired consultants and coaches and read all the business books, and I just couldn't seem to figure out how to scale. So 25 years ago, I walked into my very first mastermind meeting. And, I'm kind of at an age where I barely remember what I ate for breakfast yesterday. But I still remember 25 years ago walking out of that first meeting and saying to myself, oh my God, I found my tribe. Like nice. I knew in that first meeting, like these people were me, they got me, they understood what I was going through. So this first mastermind was a mastermind for entrepreneurs. And the only reason we joined it was to grow our businesses and be better entrepreneurs, right? But what happened, I was not expecting, because within 5 or 6 months in these meetings, I'm starting to watch grown men break down and cry as they start to open up and talk about their shitty marriages and their kid problems and their business creating anxiety and depression in their lives. It was like, this is not what we signed up for. But for me, being a kid that grew up, pretty isolated and disconnected and kind of angry at the world, and this was my real first experience with that level of human connection. And because of that, I was all in on this concept. So I started joining every mastermind I could over the next several years, eventually facilitating and creating them. And guess what happened? That first business took off. I grew it over the next 5 or 6 years to $10 million in revenue, a couple hundred employees. And I was fortunate enough to sell it in 2004.
Okay.
And when you sell an 8-figure business, life gets pretty good pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
So over the next few years, I traveled extensively. I bought 3 other businesses. I invested in a lot of different things. And then maybe some people listening have had that period in your life where everything was going along swimmingly and something out of your control happens. In 2008, what's now referred to as the Great Recession, world financial crisis began. And over the next few years, I lost everything. It was literally like I was standing over a toilet bowl and it starts to flush, only it takes 3 years for all the water to drain out.
Wow, that's a great analogy of a downfall. Wow.
That's
powerful.
I mean, in that time period, I quite literally went from being a multimillionaire, living in a mansion overlooking one of the rivers of Pittsburgh, to living in my friend's basement, broke, bankrupt, divorced, alone, humiliated, but frankly ashamed. Because for 15 years, I had built this identity as this really successful serial entrepreneur. That's all people knew me as. And there I am sitting in that basement. I didn't even own a car. So I wish my story included, I bounced right back and got in the game and came, but for me, I lived in that basement literally for 5 months, but figuratively more like 5 years, dealing with that shame and imposter syndrome and that complete loss of identity. And I quit almost everything I was involved in at that time. I quit networking groups and relationships and several of the masterminds that I was in. But I stayed in one, that very first mastermind that I had joined. I stayed in that through this time period. And I honestly don't think I'd be sitting here today if it weren't for the support that I got from those people. It went way beyond a basement to live in and a car I could borrow for several months. They supported me emotionally, spiritually, financially, and literally got me through that time period. So for me, in a very real sense, masterminds helped me 10x my first business and save my life during that most difficult time period I had. So that's sort of my why and my passion for what I do. Is it's all about that human connection and helping people to achieve that in their own lives. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, there are ways that you can get involved in masterminds.
Yeah, exactly. I think the first time I was introduced to a mastermind, it was more corporate / big name, Tony Robbins, and Dean Graziosi had a mastermind that helped me with my first responder mental health course, but it was a full blown free webinar and then high ticket dollar. And I did all of the, I financed it and there was a lot of money and don't get me wrong, I learned a lot through that and, their tools and everything that they had were great. But it was just one of those things where a lot of people think that masterminds are just like group coaching, but you have a very different, lens and how you see this. How do you define a true mastermind?
Well, I go back to the source, right? Which is Napoleon Hill, like 90 years ago in Think and Grow Rich. He coined the term mastermind. And his concept was very simple. You put one person with a brain in a room and a second person with a brain, and it creates this third invisible, intangible force that he labeled the mastermind. And if you imagine putting 8 to 14 brains in the same room, the size of that invisible, intangible force, when you tap into the collective experience, collective knowledge, and collective wisdom in the room, So that's Napoleon Hill's original concept, is that sort of small cohort mastermind, not a revolving door, people who continue to meet together over time, build safety, trust, and respect for each other. That's kind of the core original mastermind concept. Now, in our world, in my world of coaches, speakers, healers, and thought leaders, I'd say 75% of what is out there labeled a mastermind is really just glorified group coaching, right? Where, people show up, pray to the altar of the guru. There's some Q&A, maybe a hot seat for good measure, but we're going to call it a mastermind because that's a little sexier and we can get more money for it, right? So there is what I call a hybrid, which is a cross between that sort of group coaching, model that can grow to hundreds of people and that small Napoleon Hill cohort style mastermind. There is something in between that I call a hybrid. But let me address one part of this that, for clarification, like the reason I use 8 to 14 as that number for the small cohort is because in the original mastermind concept, in every single meeting, every person should feel like they had a voice and participate. And if you put 20, 30, 50 people in a room, you're going to need a 4 or 6 hour meeting for everyone to really feel like they participate. Right. So again, that's that small cohort style mastermind. You can have a hybrid mastermind that can grow to 30, 50 people. I'd argue that you can't get to 100 or 200 and still call it a mastermind.
Okay.
But you can get to that larger group, and that's where you sort of blend group coaching with the mastermind concept. The key difference is that and if you think about, if you're listening and you've taken a course or participated in a group coaching program, at the end of it, you probably felt like you didn't really meet the people in the program that were going through it with you, right? Or you felt like you got to know the extroverts because they were the ones always on stage asking questions. But but you didn't form relationships or build relationships, right? You didn't create safety and trust and mutual respect in going through that course or group coaching program. So that is the key piece of that true cohort mastermind, but it's also the key to developing what I call that hybrid mastermind. So you're very intentional about the 20, 30, or 50 people going through your program, that they get to know each other. You build that psychological safety so that they will open up and talk about more, personal things, more difficult things than, what is normally addressed in like Q&A. So that's kind of some of those differences between the original Napoleon Hill concept and what we see today.
Right. And, I love, so I come from an educational background, meaning, I'm in EMS. Most of my listeners know this by now. And part of my responsibility is training. And I work with our team to train our different station level medics. But that's now grown into, I get invited to speak about what I know at different departments and different states and, up in different cities and whatnot. And when I'm training, I really like, I really like everybody to, I always like try to keep it fun, of course. And, like one of the trainings I had, someone was like, "Oh my gosh, CPR again. Yeah, good luck trying to keep me awake." And I looked at him, I said, "Oh, if you fall asleep during this, we're probably gonna be pushing on your chest because you've never seen me speak, have you?" and we got done, and he was like, "You're right. I learned stuff I've never thought of before." And he was a 35-year veteran of EMS. So it was one of those things where because I try to find that person in the room that I can connect one-on-one. And I kind of also like training one-on-one. So, when I always felt when I, with my podcasting services, training one-on-one is so great. I love it because it's back and forth. I really feel the person learns. Talk a little bit about how someone like myself or anybody else listening could take what they're comfortable with in one-on-one training and expand it to a possible mastermind, which we know, and we'll have you talk about this too, how you can scale the dollars and the income from a mastermind, even though it's the same content coming from you, but there's more people in the room per se, or the virtual room, because a lot of people are doing masterminds virtually now. And talk about that. Like, how does that transition? How do you take someone from a very comfortable one-on-one or very small 1 to 2, 3 people group into a mastermind of your ideal numbers?
Yeah. So the first thing is to recognize that what I primarily do is help people create a quote unquote high ticket mastermind. So $5,000 a year, $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year programs, right? Because if you're trying to make a living as a thought leader, coach, or speaker or healer, you almost have to have some kind of a high ticket program. One-on-one, obviously, eventually you run out of time. And so you've got to look at how you leverage. And then you get into courses and group coaching where you also lose client results, right? People buy a course, never go through it, or don't show up for the meeting. Same with group coaching. So when you kind of create these more intimate settings and you help build those relationships, it helps give them incentive to show up and do the work and get the client results. When people as thought leaders are building masterminds, what you have to recognize is that the reason somebody's going to join is still primarily to get your training, coaching, and mentoring, right? But the reason they will stay beyond the 6 months that they initially committed to, or the year they initially committed to, is because of the relationships now they've formed with the other people in the program, right?
Right.
So that's why I say you can build these programs to keep clients for 3 years, not 3 months, because at the end of the initial period, 6 months, 12 months, that's just renewal time. The program doesn't end like a training program or a group coaching program where it's like, okay, you got all my content. And one of the beautiful things about the way you structure these programs is that you can literally run out of content and still keep your clients for years because you're running it like a mastermind. And now you're tapping into that invisible, intangible force that gives people value beyond whatever comes out of your mouth.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's key, because, I think that's where I start to see a mastermind is I want to learn from the leader, but I also want to learn from the people that I meet. Like, because I know that everybody brings value and everybody brings a different perspective, and they have their own niche and their own expertise that they can share with the group. And I really, when I've been a part of masterminds and I learn from the other people rather than the leader per se, I really feel that I'm connected to that group. So that makes a lot of sense. So talk a little bit about do you start off by working with folks like myself who is used to doing a one-on-one or a very small group of people to do what I do when it comes to podcasts? And I'm going to be fully transparent here. How do I turn my, how do I turn my, program into a mastermind? I do a lot of one-on-one. I do a lot of text messaging. I do a lot of phone calls one-on-one. And, somebody who is helping me expand, one of my clients who is actually, helping me expand, where my time leaks are, got me thinking about this cohort situation and this mastermind situation. So I want to, my podcast is about telling your story, of course, but it's also about how do I get to know you better to see where you fit into my overall goals and where I may fit into your overall goals, if there's any out there. So when you work with someone one-on-one at first, and that's what they're doing, what's the timeline? What's the indicator? First the timeline of working with someone like that, and then the indicator that person is ready for the mastermind.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long precept to a question.
Yeah, there's a few directions we could go there. So I think the first thing is to look at that they want your help, right? And maybe you're giving it one-on-one now. They still want that. So there's different ways that you can structure it. the model that I try to encourage, which is different than what the industry teaches us. The industry teaches us start one-on-one, then develop like a, $100 course, and then a $1,000 course, and then a $5,000 high ticket thing. To me, I think you can avoid all those steps and start building your mastermind concept immediately. And then your downsell can still be one-on-one coaching, or your downsell could be a course that you've already created, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't need all those steps and layers in the middle. So one of the ways to sort of think about that transition is that you can, if you feel like you can't provide as much value in a group as you can on one-on-one, you can build some one-on-one into your mastermind.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of like I was wondering if that's a possibility, because that's where I feel like, I don't know, I serve, being a paramedic, I serve my community. I want to serve people. I want to be, that one-on-one really energizes me.
Yeah.
But I've also not run a mastermind, so I don't know if that maybe energizes me more.
Yeah. So I didn't start this way, but at this point, the only way you can work one-on-one with me is by joining my mastermind. And the one-on-one is actually an upsell to joining my mastermind. So you join my mastermind for a year, it's this price. You want my one-on-one help on top of it, it's significantly more, right? But that's a luxury I have now because I don't need to take one-on-one clients outside of that realm, or at least very rarely. When I started, that one-on-one coaching was a downsell. Like you either can't afford the mastermind yet, or you don't love me enough yet to want to sign up for 6 months in this, sort of other program. Then great, I'll work with you one-on-one as either a starter step, and then you can move up into the mastermind, or that they just want the one-on-one thing. So the key to sort of positioning it is that the mastermind is not for anyone who can write a check. A course or a group coaching program is for anyone who can write the check. But the mastermind is invite only, because there's in marketing, exclusivity is one of the most powerful motivators, right? So One way to think about it is when they join your mastermind, what they're really buying is more intimate access to you, right? They're joining this elite, invite-only, curated group of people that you hand-selected because you know that they're all have similarities, commonalities, that they can relate to each other, and that they, will respect each other and develop those relationships over time. A mistake that a lot of people make when they're starting these types of programs is letting anyone in who will write the big check, right? Which isn't, it's alluring, it's enticing,
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I do remember one of the other masterminds I did for voiceover was a marketing mastermind. And I went through a process, and I went through an interview, and it was kind of like a written interview back and forth. Like, okay, I need you to answer these questions and where your goals are at and what you're expected to do. Can you commit to every Wednesday once a month, blah, blah, blah. And with me, there's always a Wednesday once a month where I'm on duty. So I had to take time off of work to be able to make sure I met with the people, because there was that, what you mentioned before, there was that exclusivity that was generated by his marketing of his mastermind. So, he teaches marketing for voiceover actors, and he's really good at it. And he has a great system. So it totally makes sense that he's got this, and he's a first responder. So that's another reason why we connected. And it was, now that you're saying this stuff, I'm going, oh yeah, that was a full-blown mastermind walkthrough, crawl, walk, run, to be able to get me into it, because I had that FOMO. I had the FOMO of like, oh, if I'm not part of this, I'm going to have to wait a year to be a part of this again, to be able to apply again.
Yeah. So I use that same process. If you want to join, you fill out an application, then we get on a one-on-one call to review the application. And what I'm looking for there is, are you a fit?
Sure.
Because what
That makes
you
total
don't
sense.
want is somebody joining a program like this and the other people thinking like, why did you let them in? You know, like
Yeah.
they're a narcissist or
So that's that's a little bit different than a cohort. Kind of a cohort is you could go through a little bit of an application process in a cohort, but for the most part, it's supposed to be like, the way I've seen cohorts run before, it's just like, hey, let's get a group of people together that the leader tries to train everybody the same way, or at least a little bit of adjustment their way. So, when it comes to, shifts that people have to make, every coach, every person who feels that they can coach, I was approached early on in my voiceover career to be a coach. And I'm like, I'm not ready for that yet. No. But podcasting came a little more naturally to me to feel like a coach, because I was actually walking people and holding their hands through podcasting, that I kind of was like, I'm a coach. Like if someone were to come up to me now and say, hey, can you coach me? I'd be like, oh, hell yeah. I know how to do this. I know how to teach you the pitfalls that I went through. I knew I could build that bridge over that pitfall. So when it comes to things that you want people to recognize sooner when they're a coach and they're maybe doing those one-on-ones or those small groups or maybe even a cohorts, what's one thing, and then we're going to get into something a little bit more about what you're offering for people to come and learn more about your system. But when it comes to the shift that you wish every coach through through their leadership or what have you, what shift and switch do you hope, or can you teach us now that you would hope that they would make sooner? The switch that they make in their brain that says, I need to start looking at things a little bit sooner or differently.
Yeah. So most people, when they are launching or starting some kind of a thought leader business, they look at it and go, okay, I've got, 25 years of experience doing X. So what program can I create from that people will buy? And that's natural, right? The shift that I encourage people to make is think about who are the people that you really want to work with. Who are the people that you're not, okay, it's fine, they're in the program, they wrote the check, they show up sometimes, it's all good. Who are the people that you literally would jump out of bed in the morning because you get to work with that day, right? Like really zero in. It's your client avatar, right? And in my terminology, we call them purple fish.
Okay.
Or your purple fish that are the people you passionately want to help and you're best equipped to help. And if you really focus on targeting those people, that's number one, what will start attracting them, the caliber of people that you would want to invite into your mastermind. But the other important distinction there is now you're a coach that stands out in the field because you're not trying to help everyone. You're not trying to help anyone, right? You are making it very clear in your marketing and your branding that these are the people that I best help. Doesn't mean you can't, still work with other people that don't fit whatever that criteria is. But it's that one little shift of thinking, who is my ideal high ticket client? The person who has the means to invest in themselves and invest in me, who is the person that I'm most equipped that I can help. And number two, the person that I'm going to love working with every day.
Right. People that you get along with, people that you can invest in. Right.
Yeah, because that's right. You're investing your time,
right,
as much as they're investing their time and money in you, right?
I'm like, you're blowing my mind right now, because I've got people that I've invested my time in with that didn't really want to meet, that I don't feel that I don't want to, because they may be watching my podcast again. So I have previous clients that I invested a lot of time in, and they just brushed me off eventually once they got all of my information. And it's like, wow, they didn't feel the same way about me, I guess, that I felt about them. I was very involved with them. I was very passionate about helping them. And then they just turn on you, whether that's lack of funding, whether that's lack of content creation, whether that's, maybe a personality trait that they're not willing to share with you that they don't like about you. I don't care. I'm a big boy. Trust me. Not everybody likes Kyle Goodknight. Trust me. And that's fine with me, because I got plenty of people in my dugout. Right. So, but I'm I'm okay with that. But, but be honest with me. Like, tell me the truth. I may be able to say, oh, okay, I didn't realize that my personality rubbed off wrong on you. But, so this is very eye-opening because, knowing that, then I have clients that I do work with that I'm like, man, I wish I could work with them every day. We always laugh. We always have a good time. We always create. We always come up with new ideas. We almost come up with too many good ideas to even get it done, right? Like today, I recorded on a gentleman's podcast who's been podcasting with me for almost a year and a half now. He's been using my services to podcast. He's a disabled individual, and I just thoroughly enjoy this person. Makes me laugh. I make him laugh. We just get along. He is local to me, so that helps a little bit. I've met him in real life, so that could help like my personality accept him, and not accept him, but want to make sure that I provide for him what he thinks I should, and vice versa. But one of the things he mentioned today was, just how available I am, and it's not that I don't want to be available for him, but I'd love to do that with more people and have more income from helping more people. And then it's always about connecting him with others. I always want to do that. That's part of why I podcast. So that networking, I want to introduce you to like 6 people right now that I've thought of during this conversation. And it's one of those things where I really want to make sure that maybe possibly if I decide to do a mastermind around podcasting and growth of podcasting, like how that actually works. So one thing that I know that we're going to talk about today, and we'll wrap up with this, is you've got an upcoming 3-day virtual event that will help people better understand than just our conversation now and my crazy out of left field, left and right questions. But I'm sure it's more structured that gets people to understand more of a path where they can get to a mastermind. So talk to us about your 3-day event and how that works and how people find it. Of course, I'll put all the information in the show notes, but let's talk a little bit about that event, and let's get people to show up and see and dive deep on this mastermind concept.
Yeah. So the event is called the 6-Figure Masterminds Bootcamp, and it is virtual. It's 3 full days. Like this is
like you got to take off work if you work, right? Yeah. I've done that before though.
Yeah. But here's why this is so impactful for people, is because in these 3 days, you will 100% figure out, number one, if this is the right model for you to scale your business, right?
Yeah.
Because it may not be for
people don't
everyone.
want buyer's remorse. They spend thousands of dollars for something, and then they go, oh my gosh, this wasn't fit. Yeah.
Yes. And because that's our mentality, we're offering the free ticket to your audience to attend the event, right?
That's new. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's not about the money, in terms of attending the event. It's about the time to put in to say, okay, I'm going to clear my calendar and show up. So what we do in this event on day 1, we focus on, first of all, what is the right type of mastermind that would fit you, your personality, your business, your strengths, because there's no cookie cutter way to build a mastermind, right? It could be Napoleon Hill's small cohort. It could be that hybrid. It's all kinds of variations. There's all different types of masterminds. So we'll figure out what's the right type. Then we're going to help to figure out who your purple fish are, who is your ideal client avatar to fill that mastermind. And what was beautiful that just happened here is you just were demonstrated exactly what I'm talking about. When you talked about that one client, your whole energy shifted. Like you just and imagine surrounding yourself with 10 or 12 of those people, right?
Yeah. Nicholas Comstock, everybody, my man. He'll be so happy. I gave a shout out on
10 or 12 Nicholases sitting around the table. So we're going to help you figure out the what and the who on day 1. Then on day 2, when we come back, we start to give you an idea of how to build a funnel to move people from know, like, and trust to know, love, and trust. Because they're not going to sign up for your 6 or 12-month high-ticket mastermind because they like you. They've got to love you a little bit.
Love you, yeah.
And we'll talk about ways with simplicity that you can do that without needing a huge email list and all the fancy sales funnels and that kind of thing. Then we're going to start working on starting to enable you to verbalize so you can walk out of the 3-day event and actually start talking to people. We help you build exclusivity into it so that you can position it that it's not a constant chasing clients and that kind of thing. You literally are like, no, I don't have to convince you to join my mastermind. Tell me why I should let you in. right?
Yeah.
That's that exclusivity piece.
Yeah, that exclusivity. Yep.
And then we give you on day 3 a plan for what you're going to do in the next 90 days to start implementing this and working on it.
Well, and that exclusivity is very important, because I was just on one of the small groups I work with today, and it started off with hey, good, bad, indifferent, share, and someone just really opened up and shared everything that was different than what the focus was, and how it affected their life, and how they're looking at things differently, and looking at guests for their podcast different again. Looking like, it was very interesting to hear how that person opened up about what they've been doing for the last 3 months with me, and the time that I've spent with them, and the knowledge and the wisdom that I've shared with them, that is just me talking about what I know, and like, that person right there is, to me, is someone who is hungry and starving for more, if we just got to find the time and the commitment for that person to be able to invest in that, to be able to take them to another level. So when it comes to someone like that, if that person is happened to be listening to this podcast now, or any of the people listening to this podcast, when this 3-day event, of course, we're going to give the dates here in a few minutes, and how we find how to get registered for that with the free ticket that Jay said he's going to give the listeners. How would they prepare for this virtual event? It's like, what's the mindset, or what's like the intention that they should show up with that free ticket to know what they need to do?
Yeah, honestly,
to get the most out of it.
Yeah. So, you led me to the water, so I have to mention this. So we do offer a VIP ticket.
Of course, yeah.
That is a small charge to upgrade. It gets you recordings and some other bonuses.
Sure, yeah, like most of them do, yeah.
But we do a pre-event VIP workshop, which is really where we get into all the different types of masterminds that there are, and really get your brain started thinking about what type of mastermind. So the only preparation, it's more about just committing to show up, because this isn't an event where it's me talking. This is a very interactive event. Like, you're going to walk out. We have a 20-page workbook that goes with this event. I mean, people literally fill these workbooks up with notes, and we do, interactive breakout rooms. There's plenty of time for Q&A and coaching.
And that's part of the 3-day or the pre?
Yeah, that's part of the 3-day.
Okay, good. Okay. I was whoa, that's pre. So it's more like a 4-day. Okay. Whew. No.
Yeah. So there really isn't prep other than just, wanting to show up. And we do some things. If you sign up for the event, we will send you an assessment that you can take that'll help you sort of get a sense of where you're at and how ready you are. There are things like that we provide to anyone who signs up to help get you ready. Awesome.
Well, that's fantastic. Jay, tell us where to sign up for this. Tell us the dates, share a little bit about the information. I really think that this conversation has really helped me to want to be a part of that. So I want to know, where does it fit in my schedule? And hopefully people listening that have, I'm at the point now where, yes, I wasn't a voiceover coach. I never thought I've been a voiceover coach. Can I coach people on voiceover? Absolutely. Do I use some of my voiceover experience and some of the knowledge I learned from my coach inside of my podcasting stuff? Absolutely. Like talking to people why nobody likes their own voice. I have a very big hard stance on and explanation that everybody, when I explain to them why they don't like their own voice, they seem to the psychology behind wanting to not do it because of their hearing their voice. It changes things. So it's one of those things where, tell us more about it and where people can find this and what are the days and whatnot. I know that you and I got on to do this because we want to make sure it lined up, the launch of this podcast lined up with the days that you're going to be doing this, so that as many people that are listening to this can be a part of it.
Yeah. So the next one coming up is February 24th through the 26th. We run it from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern each day. Like I said, it's a full commitment.
Yeah, that's an 8-hour day right there.
Yeah. but I'm telling you, you will not feel like it's 8 hours because
no, yeah. The times I've been involved with other trainings like that, it has gone so fast because of the breakouts. And yeah, I mean, and those, I mean, COVID really helped bring that kind of event together where people are accepting that. And it's when it's something that you really want to be involved with and really think it could help your business, those hours fly by.
We'll give you the link here. It's the site is sixfiguremasterminds.com.
Okay.
It's with
That'll be in
the numeral 6, but it'll be, in the notes. And when you get to that page, I encourage you to look at some of the testimonials because I've had many people say it's the best 3-day event they've ever attended. I have somebody who said it's worth more than $100,000 in training they've invested in over the last 5 years, just the three days. So people get true transformation out of it. And whether you're ready to walk out of the event and start working on a mastermind, or it's something that you look at as a future project in 6 months, the value is that you will have a roadmap of what you can create, the possibility that you can create, that possibility of surrounding yourself with 12 Nicholases. Right? And that alone gives you motivation and makes your decisions that you make between now and starting this thing so much easier, because it's like, okay, does this help me get to 12 Nicholases? No, then I'm not wasting my time on it, right? So it gives you that clarity and that roadmap for building something that can literally create 6 figures in revenue, just one program that takes, once you fill it, 10 or 12 hours a month to deliver it.
Yeah. Well, and that's so funny. I smiled real big when you said roadmap, because that, Ignition Path, and then the name of my company is Goodknight Podcasting Solutions. And when I do everything through a roadmap concept, right? All of my stuff is navigation, and it's very map oriented because it is, when I break things off to discuss things, it's a rest stop. Okay, this is what you're going to learn at the rest stop. It's a mile marker. Okay, the next mile marker is this. So it's funny that you said it's a roadmap, because it goes right into like my marketing of the business that I created for podcasting and people that want to do podcasts for their business growth or their information out there, or their concepts that they want to share with people, and gives them authority in the space ultimately. So, well, thanks so much, Jay, so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. It's one of those things where I think we could talk for a lot longer because of everything we did in the pre-call and then everything you brought up now. I mean, it's just a great conversation. Where can people find you if, like, let's say somebody doesn't want to wait till February? Like, where can they find you and get a hold of you to maybe pick your brain a little bit more, maybe get a one-off, one-on-one, and see maybe they're ready, maybe they think they're ready, maybe they've had other people try to get them into masterminds and it just wasn't a good fit, but they feel that you possibly could be a good fit. How do they find you sooner than February?
Yeah, so easy to find on LinkedIn. There are not too many Jay Fairbrothers out there that do masterminds, so it's easy to connect with me there. I'll give you my email address is jay@fairbrother.com. I read my own emails, so if you've got questions, you want to reach out, be happy to talk to you.
Awesome. All right, Jay, I got so interested, I didn't even talk about my sponsor. So that's okay. I can always put a pre-roll in for my sponsor. It definitely got very interesting very fast, because this is something that I've been a part of masterminds in the past, really good ones. And I've been a part of masterminds where I feel like I've wasted my money. But then on the other hand, so I guess that fear of not being ready or not being worthy enough to run my own mastermind has kind of been peeled back a little bit. You really opened up my eyes about how to approach it when someone may be ready. And someone out there listening to the Ignition Path podcast could have that very same feeling. And that's why I do this podcast, not only to connect with you and get to know you better and to see where things could be synergistically appropriate between two people that are out there trying to change people's lives, but when people listen to the content, that this message may be something that they need, whether that's a mastermind or whether that's a podcast. So once again, thanks so much, Jay, for coming on. I appreciate your time, and go Steelers. I'm going to get ready to switch my hat. I should have thought about it and put my Steelers cap on, but it is what it is. So go black and gold.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you, Jay. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path.
fueling the entrepreneurial fire.